Welcome to Glove Talk, your weekly news in boxing. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit the like and subscribe button. With that said, let's get into this week's news. So first thing we're going to do is we're going to start with the fights that happened this weekend, and then we're going to get into the news going from the lightest weight class to the heaviest weight class. So first, right off the bat, it looks like Eddie Hearns and Matchroom finally had their first show back in Eddie's back garden, and overall it wasn't too bad. I thought that, you know, the way they had it all set up, it aesthetically wasn't too bad. I think the fights themselves were a little lackluster. I wasn't totally enthused by them. I would say that, you know, the card overall I'd probably give maybe a C. I think the, you know, presentation, everything, I'd probably give like a B. So it was like, you know, C plus overall, C plus, B minus, not too bad. But let's get to the main event, which was Ted Cheeseman versus Sam Eggington. And, you know, I think a lot of people like this fight for the entertainment value of it. I think that it's always interesting seeing two guys that are well matched up and take a lot of punishment and throw a lot of punches. So that was great. But to be honest with you, this fight, great for the sense of, like I said, entertainment value wise, it was fine. But when you started looking at the two fighters and their skill levels and everything like that, it wasn't very good. Both guys got hit a lot and there was very little defense, especially Eggington was just, I mean, it's like Cheeseman couldn't miss. There was zero defense on his side, you know. I think it was a decent domestic fight, but nothing that I would be too excited for or go back and watch if I was you, to be honest with you. But not, like I said, not terrible compared to especially some of the top ranked cards. But yeah, I think that for their first show back, it wasn't bad. I think presentation wise, like I said, was very good. And I actually didn't mind the setup. I know some people were complaining about the fact that it sounded like they had some kind of crowd noise going on with the presentation, and some people really hated that. I didn't mind it too much. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought that, you know, overall it was fine. But yeah, not the best card I've seen, but certainly not the worst. A big step up compared to the first DAZN card that they had. So I mean, I was grateful for that, to say the least. So next up was PBC's very first card, and that was supposed to be Fulton versus Leo for the vacant WBO title. And Fulton actually tested positive for COVID, so he was unable to fight, but they had a good fill-in with Williams. Overall, good card. I thought it was pretty well done. I think it looked better than what we've been seeing, especially from DAZN. I thought the main event wasn't bad at all, and I am glad to hear that Fulton is going to get a shot at that title afterwards. So essentially have the fight that they should have had for this one. Decent overall, not bad. Let's see where they're gonna go. PBC, I'm very excited to see some more of their cards later this year. They have some really great cards, it looks like. So moving on to that, now we're going to move into the news. First thing I'm going to talk about is, well, Paulie got fired from Showtime, and for some comments he made 3 months ago, actually, which is kind of interesting to me because, you know, you'd think that if it was something he just made off the cuff recently, you know, he'd get in trouble with that, but it's something he made 3 months ago. I'm not going to repeat what Paulie said. I am going to show on screen. I'm going to show you guys kind of some of the statements he made. I'm not sure if these are all of them. I'm sure that there's maybe some that are left out, but it's going to be right over here so you can kind of read some of them. Pause if you need to and read through it. Some of it I can see why maybe it was a little bit of a problem. A little bit of a problem for sure. Some of it I can see where he was kind of talking about history and kind of the history of boxing and stuff, but then he kind of went into some other issues. These aren't all the statements that were made. I think there was some other stuff thrown in there about systemic racism also that he mentioned. I'm not going to get into this topic too much. I just want to kind of talk about Paulie and what this kind of means going forward. I think that honestly, I'm not surprised that this happened. And the reason is because Paulie's known for kind of speaking his mind and kind of not censoring himself. And that leads up to sometimes interesting comments by him. And I think that this is just one of those things that when it comes out, and I believe the video came out not too long ago, it's really bad timing, man. I mean, this is just, it's really bad timing. I don't know. I think that this is a cumulative kind of thing with him. I think that they're looking at this, and if I'm someone that is working at Showtime with the current climate in the US, I could be like, you know what, this could be a bad idea. We could end up with a moment where he says something either on air or off air in another interview that hurts our product, you know. And it sucks to say that, because I think, to Paulie's credit, he was very good at his job. I don't like Paulie so much as when he was a fighter. I don't always care for his interviews and his take on everything, but he was pretty good at his job. And I will say that. I will give him credit for that. But I think that this might not be the last time we see Paulie, to be quite honest with you. I could definitely see someone else picking him up, especially DAZN. DAZN needs a lot of help. They need a lot of help when it comes to their commentary, especially right now. Chris Mannix is doing other sports and it kind of isn't in the DAZN bubble, so to speak. I could definitely see Paulie stepping in there. I don't think it'd happen right away. I think they'd kind of let all this stuff die down and kind of let the dust settle, so to speak, and then, you know, hire him on. I think he would probably fit in there well. I think he would be a good addition, because their team is just so weak. They're definitely the weakest team out of all of them. Although, you know, say what you will about the ESPN team. And so, yeah, I'm not going to stay on this too long. I think that in general, I don't think this will be the last time we see Paulie. But at the same time, I'm not shocked that this has happened. So now let's move into the different weight classes, going from lightest to heaviest. We're going to start off with lightweight. And the first thing I wanted to mention was Devin Haney and Gamboa look like they're going to be squaring up, possibly in late September. Some people were giving Devin Haney a lot of flack for this, and quite honestly, we're talking about how you're fighting kind of a washed up fighter and all this stuff like that. You know, I get it, and I can understand it a little bit more. Gamboa is certainly not the fighter he was. There's no question about that. But at the same time, in the current climate we are in, when it comes to the financial situation in boxing, I can kind of understand this a little bit more. It's not a great fight, though. I'm not going to try to sugarcoat it and say I'm so glad he's doing this. It is going to be his first title defense. You know, at a certain point, he is going to have to step up in talent for sure. I think this is a slight step up for him. And I'm just happy that they could maybe get this deal done and we could be having it late September. It's just a very weird circumstance in terms of financials. Guessing that they picked Gamboa almost purely based on the fact that he can be someone that everyone can compare how Devin Haney does compared to Tank Davis. And then on top of it, we know that Gamboa is probably going to take the money they're going to offer him. So it's a financial win-win there. So I kind of get it, and I'm not too mad about it. So next up, talking about major fights happening this year in the lightweight division, looks like Ryan Garcia and Luke Campbell are getting just that little bit closer. This was posted on Ryan Garcia's Instagram. I'll be showing that over here. And, you know, the thing that was interesting, I had to dig a little bit because there's no date on this. I dug a little bit through some things Ryan has said on his social media, and it looked like October, somewhere in October, this fight would happen. That was good. I like that timing. I think it's a very interesting fight. I'm very pumped for this fight. But what really made me concerned about this fight is that this statement from Oscar De La Hoya on Twitter popped up. Now, people that hate Ryan Garcia immediately went to the idea that this is Oscar sending a message to Ryan Garcia to sign the contract. I disagree, actually. I actually don't agree with that. I don't think this is Oscar talking to Ryan Garcia. I think this is Oscar talking to Luke Campbell's team and talking to Eddie Hearn. That's my opinion on this. I think it's everyone wants to jump on Ryan Garcia, but it doesn't make sense to me that he would do this publicly on social media to Ryan Garcia. I think he would just call up Ryan and be like, hey, you got to sign the contract. That's my take on it. I would not jump on it saying it's Ryan's fault. I know people always want to point to Ryan and say it's his fault, he's the diva and everything. And don't get me wrong, I have criticized Ryan on this channel before. I've called him out and saying, you know, I think that he's asking for too much money. He values his social media too much. I've totally done that. But I will also say that I'm not going to jump to conclusions unless I have more information. And I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt on this because it just doesn't make sense to me. I know Ryan and Oscar don't have the best relationship, but I don't think that their relationship is so fractured and so toxic that Oscar would do this in this fashion. I don't think we're at that level yet. So for me, this is Oscar talking to Luke Campbell's team, in my opinion. So let's get to the elephant in the room when it comes to the lightweight division in fights, and that is Teofimo Lopez and Lomachenko. Now, it came out on actually Teofimo Lopez's birthday that Mike Coppinger said that he heard from a reliable source that Teofimo Lopez has declined the contract that was sent to him for $1.2 million for the Lomachenko fight, and that he wants more money and that he's just turning down this contract currently. And this just sparked tons of opinions and just, I mean, people went crazy about this. You had the Teofimo Lopez fans saying, you know, this is a crazy low ball, this is a terrible offer. You had people that don't like Teofimo Lopez saying this is a great offer, I don't understand what the problem is. People start throwing around numbers of gates and, you know, pay-per-view buys, and this is what he got last time, this is what he's worth, this is what his social media is like. People were even bringing up like, well, you know, Jake Paul made this amount of money for his fight and he's not even a professional fighter. It's just like people went crazy talking about this. It was a little bit mind-numbing. You know, I like to think that the boxing community has a lot of opinions and it can be very interesting, but in moments like this, it just makes you just go, why am I part of this community? This just is nonsense. This is total nonsense right now. A lot of people had a lot of opinions, like I said, and a lot of people are so-called experts on this topic. And, you know, I'm going to give you my take. I don't claim to be an expert when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I'm just going to break it down the way I see it and how I feel about this whole situation. So first and foremost, I think it was smart of Teofimo Lopez to make the statement on his birthday that he's not going to talk business. He's going to take the day for himself, you know, with his family and everything. Like, that is a really smart move on his part because it is his birthday and he shouldn't be thinking about this stuff. The other thing is, too, this is from Mike Coppinger. We don't know how real this is, how real this isn't. You know, that was a smart move from Teofimo Lopez on his birthday to do that. The problem I have is that his next major tweet about this was maybe not the dumbest thing he could have said, but it's up there. I mean, it's a really bad take on this situation to say that you're not going to take $1.2 million because you need to feed your family is a dumb take and is a really dumb statement when there's 40 million Americans without a job right now. I mean, you got people frantically looking for jobs right now and you're turning down 1.2 like it's nothing. It was just a bad take. It was a bad take. Now, we have to be, I try to be fair with these guys sometimes because I think we all forget, you know, they're 21, 22 years old. You know, I don't think they think everything out before they tweet it. And so I wish someone had said to, you know, Teofimo Lopez, like, hey, this isn't a good take, man. You to reevaluate how you're going to go about this. What I think he should have said is, I'm not happy with this contract, so I'm not approving it and I'm not signing it. That's all he should have said. That's all he should have said, if that's the case. Or if that's not the case, his take should have been, hey, this isn't the whole story they're telling you. I'm working on it right now. That's it. You don't need to get into the nitty gritty, but if there's certain things going on with this contract that you're not happy with, just simply say, I'm not happy with this contract. I'm going to break into my thoughts now on the actual evaluation of everything, the 1.2 million. So I don't think that's a bad offer. I don't think that's a lowball offer, and I'm going to tell you why. I got a couple points here. So number one, for the Comey fight, he made $500K. Not a bad amount, but now he's doubling what he made for the Comey fight. On top of that, when you look at Teofimo Lopez's resume, he's only fought one champion, and that was Richard Comey, which was a very short fight a year ago. So it's not like he has a long track record here. Number two, another thing that people like to bring up is, well, he has a great brand. No, he doesn't. He doesn't have a big brand. Lomachenko has 1.8 million people that follow him on Instagram. If we're going to use that as a benchmark, which a lot of people like to use, in boxing now, compared to Teofimo Lopez, who has 168,000 followers. So he has a much smaller brand than Lomachenko. It's not even close. It's not even close. So you can't really utilize that as he needs to make more because of his brand. You can miss me with that. That's just nonsense. Number three, a big part of this is I think he would have been closer to that probably 2 million. I see people throwing on the 2 million number. Oh, he should make 2 million. He should make 2 million. A lot of people, he probably would have made 2 million if this was normal times and there was a gate and everything like that. So that moves on to the next big thing. There is no gate for this. So if there's no gate for this, that's a substantial hit financially for this fight. Then you add on top of it, there's now reports that this might not be on even pay-per-view. So it's not even going to be on pay-per-view. There's no gate. I mean, I'm sorry. Like there's just the money that was gonna be there for this fight is not there anymore. It's just not. Add on top of it that, ESPN, they're having issues alone. I mean, ESPN just have their lowest ratings in the history of the company. That doesn't help anything. I know that that's not, Top Rank's fault and that's not something they can control, but at the same time, it's not like they're helping out in the situation either. It's not like they're throwing money at Bob right now to say, we need this fight. They don't have any money. They're losing sponsors. They're not doing well as a company overall. So when you factor in all those things, in fact, it's a global pandemic right now, and that the stock market and the financial situation in America is just melting down. I just don't think that 1.2 is a bad offer. I think he would have gotten 2 if it was just a regular, fight and we had a gate and it was on pay-per-view and everything else, but it's just not. And so if he's not happy with that and he wants to wait until next year till things, get back to normal, that's fine. I mean, he's going to have to deal with people saying he's ducking Loma, and it really doesn't help how hard he went at Loma. I mean, he's been calling out Loma for a while now. And when you post relentlessly on social media saying, this, that, and the other thing about Loma, hey, I want to fight you. I want to fight you. I want to fight you. Calling him out nonstop. You get offered a contract, which is your highest paid that you would have ever made in boxing, especially with a very, limited resume. I'm sorry. You look bad. You look really bad. And I hope they can fix this, and hopefully they can get this going forward. But until they do, I mean, just not a great situation if you're Teofimo Lopez, in my opinion. I think that he could have handled it better, but at the same time, like I said, I mean, the kid's 22 years old. I couldn't imagine how I would have handled it. I probably would have done a lot worse, but that's just my take on everything. So moving up in weight, now moving to welterweight, Virgil Ortiz is talking a little bit about, how he wants to fight, a former world champion. I think this is a great move. I think it's a very smart step up for him. I think everyone's very excited about him. I saw a lot of people, really talking him up. A lot of people, online thinking that he can be really special. So I'm glad to see this. I want to see those smart progressions from him. I want to see him, go from Samuel Vargas to someone that's a little bit better. Obviously, he's taking his time because, there's no reason to rush him into like an Errol Spence fight, a Crawford fight right away. It just doesn't make sense. So I think this is a smart progression, and I was actually really happy to see this. Speaking of champions at welterweight, interesting enough, Gary Russell Jr. decided to call out, Terrence Crawford and said that he wanted to fight him at 147 pounds. I don't really understand this. It just doesn't make any sense. Gary's not even fighting at lightweight right now, so they're like 3 weight classes apart. I don't really understand why he would call out Terrence Crawford. It was really funny. I think if you go on Terrence Crawford's social media, he posted a video basically verbally backhanding, Gary Russell pretty badly about it. So if you want a little bit of an entertainment, go check that out. But yeah, I don't really understand this. Another person calling out Terrence Crawford was, Kell Brook. Apparently there was an offer maybe put out there for him. He was approached by Arum apparently, and he says he wants to fight Crawford. He's very excited about the idea of fighting Crawford. I don't hate this fight, especially if the money's right for this year and we can get Terrence Crawford in the ring this year. I don't mind it. Obviously Spence is tied up, and we'll talk about that fight in a little bit. But, it's not a bad stay busy fight for him to fight Kell Brook. Kell Brook isn't a bad fighter. I think if he's going to, wait out the rest of the year, I just don't see why not. I mean, make a little bit of money, get in the ring, make sure that all your skills are sharp. It just makes sense to me if you ask me. But that might not be happening purely because there was talk about Pacquiao and Crawford fighting. They were saying like 11-14. I saw that being thrown under 11-21. There's nothing concrete about it, but there has been talk about that, which that makes a lot more sense if, they're talking about the fact that he's not interested in fighting someone like a Kell Brook now. I bet you that this would probably not work out. And I'll tell you why. Why would you have this fight this year with 0 gate? Why would you have this fight right now when people financially might not be buying pay-per-view as readily? I don't think this is a smart fight. I think this would be better off next spring. I would take the Kell Brook fight, stay busy, and if you want to have the Pacquiao fight after that, have that afterwards in springtime when you can have a full gate. You can really promote it well. I think rushing into this and trying to have it in November just doesn't make any sense. It really doesn't make any sense. I'm not even talking about these guys being in shape. I'm sure both of them are in great shape. I just don't get it. I don't understand why you would rush the promotion for this fight. It's just too big of a fight. I mean, especially a Manny Pacquiao fight. Like, why? I don't get it. So, that's my take. Take the Kell Brook, set up for Manny in spring, and that's what I would do. So going from Terrence Crawford to Errol Spence. Errol Spence and Danny Garcia has signed contracts and everything is set up now. I'm excited for this fight. I think it's a great fight. People are a little bit nervous in general about him since he's been back. He hasn't really had any fights yet, and people are kind of looking for little things here and there. There was this kind of ridiculous article that came out. I'll show it to you right over here, talking about his mental state. I'm going to play the video for you that they're talking about because they try to make it seem like he's a crazy person. And I'm just going to kind of play it for you real quick.
Oh, I would have thought it was sweet, man. With my tail.
So if you don't know what Errol Spence said during that clip, he was saying and yelling at coyotes that were messing around with and kind of getting around his calves of his cows. And he has his AR-15 there with him, and he's basically saying, you're messing around with my cows, and basically looking at like maybe shooting them if they're messing around with his cows. And so that's why when I see this kind of statement from this article that like people are worried about his mental state. So let me just break this down. So it's really simple. So a dude in Texas on his farm is yelling at coyotes for messing around with his cows, and he has an AR-15 with him. That sounds like Texas on an everyday to me. Like that doesn't sound like anything new. Like that's just Texas, dude. Like I'm sorry, I don't know. Maybe it's just me because I'm a firearms fan and everything like that. Like, and I go hunting and stuff. Like This just sounds like Texas. I don't get it. Maybe I'm missing something, but like to me, this seems pretty normal. So I think he's fine. I think he'll be great in this fight against Danny Garcia. I think, Danny Garcia had a lot of success at 140. I think he's struggling a little bit more at welterweight, obviously. I think the talent there is substantial right now, and that he's struggling to kind of break into that more elite level. So, that being said, it's not like he's certainly not a tune-up fight. So I have to applaud Errol Spence for this, and I'm very excited to see how he does. And I think if he goes in there and he just dominates Danny Garcia, I think we are going to see, a lot of people making statements about him and Terrence Crawford. Terrence Crawford is getting up there in age, and his last time out, he wasn't super impressive. Obviously, he got the stoppage, but he was struggling a little bit, and it just makes you think, if Spence goes out there and dominates, is it the right time for him to have that step up fight and eventually actually square off with Terrence Crawford? I'm hoping for late 2021, if you ask me. I don't know if it's going to actually get done, but hey, guy can hope, right? Okay, so now we're going to be moving on to middleweight. Gosh, I don't know how often I have to talk about Billy Joe Saunders, but I'm going to start off with Billy Joe Saunders and just simply say there's talk about him fighting Demetrius Andrade or Callum Smith. Now, I'm not saying that this can't happen in 2020. I'm just saying that he is probably not going to get to pick, because there's this that pops up, which is that those are exactly the guys that Canelo's looking at. And now Canelo is also, he hasn't said it officially, but it's looking like September 12th is probably not going to happen, especially with Mike Tyson and Roy Jones Jr. creating a lot of buzz, having the same date. It just doesn't make a lot of sense, because he's also having issues with DAZN, which I talked about last week. So, depending on who he decides to fight, it seems like I'm probably leaning towards Callum Smith. If he does take Callum Smith, maybe, Andrade and Billy Joe Saunders go at it. I think they'd probably have that at middleweight. So I don't know how this is going to shake out yet. Just wanted to kind of update you guys on this stuff. It's really frustrating talking about both Billy Joe Saunders and Canelo, because neither one of them can really commit to who they're fighting. I'm more frustrated, with Canelo in particular, because I'm more excited to see who Canelo fights, especially if it's another champion and there's belts involved. One fight this year would be good, but he also needs to set up himself for next year and figure out how he wants that to be. Maybe he has this fight and then it's Billy Joe Saunders in the spring. Let's see how it all kind of plays out from here. Staying at middleweight now, so we have Devchenko and Charlo. It looks like they're going to be late September too, going for that fight, and they're targeting the 26th. I'm super pumped for this fight. I am so excited for this fight. I think it's great. It looks like they're going to maybe do both Charlos on the same day. I've been hearing different kind of setups, like where one Charlo fights earlier in the day and then another later at night. I don't know how they're going to really break it out, but it is going to be pay-per-view. Now, some people were upset at this being pay-per-view, saying that the Charlo brothers aren't big enough for pay-per-view. I don't really know at this point. Like, if I would really go that far to say that, I would have to say that in comparison to some of their opposition, I would say, yeah, it's not a they would not be pay-per-view for those fights. For this fight though, for Devchenko, I would say you could probably put that on pay-per-view. I think that's a solid enough fight, at least to us, people that know about Devchenko. He's obviously not like a Triple G or a Canelo, where they have a bigger casual fan base. But I mean, Devchenko is a really, really solid fighter. I could definitely see this being on pay-per-view, and regardless, I'm going to be tuning in for it. So moving on from that, I'm going to go actually straight to heavyweight, and some news about AJ and Pulev. It looks like they're targeting December 5th or 12th to have their fight. I'm just glad this fight's going to happen this year. It really sets a nice pace for next year. The Usyk fight maybe being in the spring for Joshua, and then having the mega fight with Tyson Fury if everything works out in late 2021. So moving on, staying over there in the UK, it looks like Usyk and Chisora are trying to be rescheduled for October. I don't know when this fight's going to happen. It's been moved around. It was supposed to be in September. Now it's looking like October. I'm just excited to see these guys. I'm more excited to see how Alexander Usyk really does as a heavyweight. You know, his first fight really wasn't much. I'm really excited to see how he does against someone like a Derek Chisora. I think Derek Chisora for him it's a really good benchmark to see how well he does against someone that's more full size as a heavyweight. So I'm excited for this fight. I can't wait to see Alexander Usyk back in the ring. And Derek Chisora, quite honestly, I mean, who doesn't love Derek Chisora press conferences, right? I'm going to end the week on this. It's just very interesting that Roy Jones Jr. now is talking about fighting Anderson Silva after having the Mike Tyson bout. I don't know what it is with Roy and fighting, but he just seems like he doesn't want to stop. And I really hope he does. I don't see the point of fighting Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva is, Hall of Fame UFC fighter. So I don't really get the appeal of seeing them really square off. They're just, I guess maybe because they saw what Conor McGregor did with, Mayweather, they think maybe they can do something similar. I don't know, but it just doesn't seem very appealing to me. So with that said, if you're new to the channel, thanks for stopping by. Hopefully you'll subscribe. If you enjoyed the video, make sure to hit the like button. Little side note, I just wanted to kind of point out, I am releasing all of these also on iTunes and Spotify. So if you want to, just listen to it instead of just getting the video version, it's also available on there. And with that said, we'll talk to you next week. Thanks.